What's up, guys? It is Hot Wheels Tournaments. Welcome to another presentation video. You guys seem to really like these, really enjoy these, and I've gotten good feedback on them, so I'm going to continue doing them. Hopefully, I'll get better equipment here soon. But today, we're talking about what I would do if I ran Hot Wheels. Hot Wheels is run very well. I think it's in a better spot than it ever has been, but it still has its shortcomings. I know we as collectors have our complaints, and I'm here to address those complaints and make them better, as well as add a few things that I think would be fun and are maybe more based on my personal choice than what actually makes sense for the brand. We're going to start today by talking about basics, and for the most part, I'm going to do absolutely nothing. I think the basic lineup is the best thing Hot Wheels has to offer. The price point is unbeatable. The variety is unmatched by any diecast car manufacturer in the world. There's no other place where you can open a case and find JDM, exotic cars, Euro cars, muscle cars, and everything else under the sun at any given point, and it's absolutely fantastic. I started collecting in 2015. The lineup at that point was mostly muscle cars, a few supercars, and they were beginning to experiment with some JDM. But, to see where the brand has come in 10 years, it's absolutely incredible. And there's nothing that needs to be changed lineup-wise. There are a few small tweaks we can make, and we're going to go ahead and talk about those. So with basics, like I said, nothing lineup wise. We're not changing anything. We're not changing the proportions. I know some people say it's JDM heavy. That's not a basics problem. Maybe some other series, yes. But in the basic line, you get everything you want. Where we need to improve is with the basic exclusives. There's definitely some room for improvement here, and really the only area where there's room for improvement. The Zamax, for whatever 2 years ago, went from 18 to 12. These are some of the most intriguing exclusives that any brand has to offer, and I think has inspired a lot of other diecast brands in making their chases raw. The Zamac body type, seeing a car unpainted with just the deco on it looks so cool and so unique. It really set the tone, I think, for what a unique model could be, and they're fantastic. I don't know why we lost 6 of them. I don't know why they went from 3 different exclusives a batch to 2. Makes no sense to me. We're going back to 18. The red editions are perfect. We could also go to 18 here. Right now, we're only getting 4 sets of 3 a year. I think we could easily get 6 sets to go from 12 to 18. But red editions don't need to change anything there. The remaining store exclusives, though, are pretty lifeless. They need a revamp. They used to mean a lot back in the day when they were part of the Kmart Collector's Day and they were in the K-Day cases and you knew what the exclusives were. Now these exclusives pop up randomly at Dollar Tree or GameStop or Best Buy and Kroger. Half the time you don't even know they're exclusives coming out. They're not marketed at all. They don't have any common theme or thread between them, and they're not very interesting or desirable. And there are some cool exclusives and some cool colors that get released that people don't realize, and then they go for crazy prices on the secondary market because they randomly pop up, and we just need to change that whole process, and here's how we're going to do it. So what are we going to do with these 12 exclusives every single year? How are we going to make them more collectible and more desirable to the Hot Wheels fan base? We're going to do that by partnering with our other 2 big retailers here in the US. In the US, you obviously have Walmart and Target, but the other 2 chains that consistently get every single case code and multiple cases of every single release Hot Wheels puts out each year are Dollar Tree and Kroger. And we're going to reward them by giving them 6 exclusives with 2 batches of 3 that should draw collectors to the pegs and help them move more product. For Dollar Tree, we're going to take the same approach that Hot Wheels took with Target. Just like you associate Target with red, their signature color, the color they use for everything marketing-wise, you associate Dollar Tree with that signature green they use. So we're going to take that signature green and we're going to make what we call Shamrock editions. You're going to have green and white recolors of basic Hot Wheels cars over the year, and then you're going to have a Shamrock logo on them to identify them. Just like the red edition has a red logo and the Zamac has a Zamac logo. The red edition also gets a red stripe on the side that says red edition. We're going to do the same for the card art with the Shamrock edition. It's going to have a green stripe and say Shamrock edition, making it instantly recognizable when you go to the pegs that you have found a Dollar Tree exclusive. For Kroger, we're going to have to do something a little bit different because with Kroger, they have different store names depending on where you are in the US. Kroger's in the Rocky Mountain region are called City Markets and King Supers. You go to Arizona and California, they're going to be called Fry's. You go to the East Coast, they're going to be called Harris Teeters. So you have different names, which makes it tough to identify the branding of their exclusive with one specific store. So what we're going to do is we're going to give exclusive red line tire variations. This is what they used to do before Zamax and before Red Editions. These store exclusives had a exclusive tire variation. We're bringing that back. You're going to get a basic wheel with a red line tire that is going to be unique to that car. So it'll still be the same color and same deco you see in the main line, but it's going to have a red line tire attached to it. But we're not going to stop there because that's a little bit boring and isn't really a significant change. We're going to change the card art as well. We're going to go with retro style card art for these cars. They're going to look like they were made in 1968 because obviously with the red line, we're paying heritage to those 1968 cars, those original Hot Wheels. So we're going to pay heritage not just on the car itself, but with the card art itself. And again, this retro card art is going to instantly stand out when you open up a case or walk to the dump-in or walk to the pegs in Kroger. You're going to instantly know that that car is unique and instantly know if you're a collector that you have found a Kroger exclusive. So that's how we're going to revamp these 12 exclusives and make people know what they are and exciting to get, exciting to find, and not just another basic color. And the last change to the basic line isn't just related to the exclusive colors, it's related to an event. I alluded to it earlier, the Kmart K-Day Collectors event, and we're going to loop it back here now. If you don't know what this event was, it was the coolest thing in the world. When Kmart was still in business, you could walk into a Kmart on 8 a.m. on a specific Saturday. There was 3 of them a year. You'd walk into the store and they'd have cases of Hot Wheels ready to go on the table. Each person would grab a raffle ticket and they'd then start shaking the raffle ticket bucket and call people up, and you would get to be the first person to go through a Kmart exclusive case. Now these cases would not only have your normal selection of main lines and potential for a super treasure hunt, but they would have the 4 exclusive colors. So now where these 4 exclusives are randomly at GameStop and Best Buy and Dollar Tree and Kroger, as we mentioned, these exclusive colors were exclusive to this event, and that's why they were such a big deal. They had a whole event surrounding them, celebrating them, and they've lost that appeal. But I think it's time to bring that back. I would do it with any store that was interested. I would do collectors events, but I think the best one to do at would be Target. The red exclusives are kind of perfect. They're easily to identify because of their bright red color when you're pulling them out of cases. They have that red stripe, so you have the exclusives that people could pull out of the case and keep. And there are also not too many of them. The problem you run into with like a Walmart or a Dollar Tree or Kroger is they're kind of everywhere. There's multiple per town. And if you do multiple per town, despite how popular Hot Wheels collecting is, you'll end up with 1 or 2 people per store. Targets are few enough and far enough between that if you did a collector's event, you'd have 7-8 people at a store, and that's really what it's about. It's a collector's event. It's meant to be a place where you meet other collectors. You get to meet these people, become friends with them, and just talk about Hot Wheels and appreciate the hobby. And we're missing that right now. There's a lot of discourse in the Hot Wheels community that is pretty negative. People accusing other people of being scalpers, saying nasty things in comment sections when they see people buying super treasure hunts and pallet rating, and people getting into arguments over what it means to be a collector and what you should collect and what you shouldn't collect and how you should go about it. We need a common place every year where we can meet up and just be friendly and have the opportunity to find really cool and really awesome cars. So not only is this for the betterment of it making it easier to find store exclusives, which red editions are hard to find and can go for crazy prices, but it's for the betterment of people getting to hang out and, you know, meet other collectors in the area and talk about the hobby, which we need more of outside of social media, in my opinion, because the discourse has gotten very negative in certain aspects. So that's going to do it for basics. It's pretty simple there. The lineup's great. I think we could do better with the exclusives, and I think we could desperately use a collector's event. People would go nuts for it. It would do crazy numbers for whatever store supported it. But for now, we're going to move on to premium. And where basic is virtually almost perfect in my mind with some slight changes, premium is not that way. We've got some definite work to do across the many premium lines that are offered. We'll start with the easy one, Car Culture Boulevard. We don't really need to do anything here. I think the Car Culture and Boulevard lineups are perfect. We are getting incredible, very detailed, unique castings that we never could have dreamed of in Hot Wheels 10 years ago. You can say what you want about the chases. Chases have always been about the Hot Wheels history and brand. I don't think there's any problem with those being included in the Car Culture line. These are perfect. They have some distribution problems. They don't seem to come through, for half the year, then they land all at once. But that's a problem for another video. We're not solving supply chain here. We're making the lineups as desirable as possible, as fun as possible, as collector-oriented as possible. And Car Culture and Boulevard are exactly that. They're built by collectors for collectors. There's a reason these are marketed now as the Hot Wheels Gold Series, as the Hot Wheels collector line. And yeah, we don't need to change anything here. So that brings us to the other big Hot Wheels premium line, and that is pop culture. And they tried a revamp for 2024. This used to be two lines. You had the retro entertainment line, which was like movie cars. So this is where the Back to the Future DeLorean was, the James Bond Aston Martins were, recreating classic, TV and movie cars. And then you had the original pop culture line, which was taking like popular things, like whether it be Marvel comic books or movies, and taking castings and giving them decos based on that. And it really wasn't doing well. Neither line was doing well. The pop culture cars were undesirable. The retro entertainment line was just re-release after re-release for re-release. They were warming pegs, so they said, you know what, we're going to combine them all into pop culture and call it one line. And they're still warming the pegs, and you're still getting re-releases. There's still nothing super unique about these. Every now and then there's a desirable model, but basically every case you open, the car has been released in some form before, or has some hideous, Masters of the Universe deco that nobody wants and is never going to sell. The experiment has failed. It doesn't work. Find a way to, get rid of this line. They're super cheap on eBay, all these cars. They're going to stay that way. Nobody wants them. We need something to take its place, though. What are we going to replace the pop culture line with? That replacement is going to be an alternating cadence of Speed Machine and Drag Strip Demons. Both of these were very popular series in the 2010s, and I think it's time to go and cater to the car enthusiast rather than the pop culture enthusiast. The Hot Wheels collector base is largely, almost completely based in car heritage, car culture, car history. That's what people care about. People in this hobby do not care about movies and TV shows, and it's part of the reason that the pop culture series struggles so much. It's part of the reason you don't see collectors really clamoring for them to the degree that you see Car Culture and Car Boulevard. We want realistic models, and that's what these lines will deliver to us. So as I mentioned, both these series were canceled in the early 2010s. They were kind of ahead of their time. Hot Wheels at that time was not what it is today. The collector base was much smaller. The variety available was much smaller. And Hot Wheels still really focused kind of on their brand as being aimed at kids rather than collectors. They did some collector stuff, but it just never was super popular. And these lines both had runs but got canceled ultimately because they didn't sell that well. Obviously today, as we've seen with premium, that doesn't really happen. So these old models also are fetching crazy prices nowadays. A lot of people came in the hobby in the mid to late 2010s and now the early 2020s. That is where a lot of the collector base has started collecting, and they didn't have a chance to go get these models. So if they want to get them, they have to go to eBay. They have to go to collecting shows to try and buy these, and these cars are fetching crazy prices. There are Speed Machines and Drag Strip Demons models out there that are fetching $200, $300, $400. There is a demand and a want for these type of castings. On top of that, we've seen some test runs with these being subsets of car culture. We saw Speed Machines in 2023. They were extremely hard to find. They were very popular. The Drag Strip Demons runs have been made twice. I think it was one of the first 3 or 4 releases of car culture, and then we also saw it either end of 22 or start of 2023. and both times it's been really popular, and those models can go for some fairly decent prices on eBay as well. So we've seen that if you do release them, there is demand in car culture for these modern releases, just like there's demand for the older releases. On top of that, I think it serves to improve kind of some underrepresented areas within the premium line. Supercars, they just don't look great in modern premium. There's something about the Hot Wheels Real Riders that they just don't look perfect. They're kind of ugly. They don't look super good, and people complain about them, and they kind of struggle as a result. And I think it's just the Hot Wheels Real Riders. They're too bulky. They're not sleek enough to look good on these supercar, hypercar castings the way that the two-piece mold looks really good. The two-piece co-molded wheels are really sharp. They're really sleek. They're really small. They look much better on supercars and hypercars than most of the Real Riders do, in my opinion. So for that reason, I think we serve to have better releases of supercars and hypercars in a premium state. And that's one of the reasons I would make this change. Also, Hot Wheels made those co-molded wheels specifically for that Speed Machines release. I refuse to believe that they made those wheels and they're just never going to use them again. And I think bringing in the Speed Machine line full time is a great way to pay off that investment. As for Drag Strip Demons, while they have had their car culture releases that have been popular, as I mentioned, they don't truly capture the wild variety and all the heritage deco that the original Drag Strip Demons line had. If you go look at the original Drag Strip Demon line, go look at some of the cars released. They were true drag strip, like drag racing cars made specifically for that line. With the car culture line, the drag strip cars that Hot Wheels released are kind of limited to cars that can also be used in other places. So if they make a gasser, it has to be able to be used in another line. Otherwise, you're making that car for a one-off release and never using it again. If you go with a Drag Strip Demons line that is going to be consistently releasing, you can start doing some of those wild, cool drag strip cars that we got in the original Drag Strip Demon lines, and I think that only serves to better help, you know, spread the variety of the drag racing cars we get. Because right now, as far as Hot Wheels is concerned, while they have great variety, I think their drag racing representation is a little bit limited at the moment. And bringing in a consistent drag strip demon line and allowing cars to be released multiple times and multiple heritage decos would allow that variety to expand. From there, we go to the Silver Series. This is the mid-premium that Hot Wheels has kind of revamped for the start of 2024. These were like the store exclusives, like the cool classics and, you know, the Walmart exclusive series we would get. The problem with them was they were basically $1 models being sold for $3. Collectors were pretty, you know, harsh and fairly so about the quality we were getting. We were paying $2 more for cars, and they were just, you know, as good as basic mainline cars, except they cost 3 times the price. Hot Wheels they revamped it. Some of these models now get metal bases. They have these new wheels they released. They're kind of hit or miss. But let's go ahead and talk about where this line is at, because we're through basically the first year of the revamped Silver Series, heading into year 2. Pros, they get full deco treatments. You don't ever have a situation where you're missing headlights or missing taillights like you see in the main line. They get full tampo passes on the front, the back, the sides. So you have full deco. You have a quality car in that aspect. A lot of these releases are metal on metal. Some of them still get plastic bases, which bugs me. But some of these releases are getting metal on metal releases. You're getting a proper weight for your car. You know, it feels like a $3 car when you get that metal on metal chassis. And some castings that would never be feasible in the basic line are now available at a cheaper price point. I think specifically, like you look at the 1987 Toyota off-road truck, that is an extremely popular model that has been constrained essentially to premium, and they haven't found a lot of places to use it. And then when Silver Series came along, they had that hot truck set that they released, and we got to see that model for the first time in a long time. Because while it's probably too big and being metal on metal to produce at a $1 price point, at a $3 price point, you can produce some of these models that might be more expensive and get them out of premium into a more accessible and cheaper form, which I appreciate. The cons, like I mentioned, they have new wheels. I don't think the wheels they use for this series are super good. I honestly think they kind of suck. They just they look cheap, which is weird. Hot Wheels has been very good with their wheels over the years. Their basic wheel game has just been exponentially better the last 2 or 3 years as they've introduced a lot of new variants into the lineup that look a lot better than what they were using. Matchbox is still king, in my opinion, when it comes to basic wheels, however. And then their premium wheel game is off the charts good. It is absolutely incredible what they do with their premium wheels. They are so realistic. They're fantastic. And I'm not entirely sure how they missed the ball, but I think a lot of people agree that these, wheels they're using for the Silver Series, while I can appreciate the effort to be nicer and give us a higher quality product, because some of them are cold molded, they just don't look good. The other thing, and my big problem, is most themes kind of phone it in or feel like straight cash grabs. I don't know. There's just not really a theme that I've gravitated towards. They've had some cool ideas. The Porsche idea was cool, but the models didn't feel that interesting. I think a great example is you look at the Vintage Racing. Vintage Racing is another classic Hot Wheels series from the late 2000s, early 2010s, like one of the OG premium series. And those cars were so cool. And then they were like, we're bringing back Vintage Racing. But the Silver Series version is a far cry from that. They're just generic colors and try to have these like vintage aesthetic decos instead of using like actual licensed liveries and giving us all the detail that the OG series did. And it's just, I will talk about it more in a second. I'll show an example, and it's just not great. Also, some random releases just feel like they're trying to capitalize and get cash grabs off JDM, the JDM frenzy that's been going on for the last like 8 years now. I think like you look at them putting in like the EK9 in neon speeders and the Falcon Deco, because the EK9, well, there were Civics that had the Falcon Deco, the EK9 never really represented it, but specifically like looking at neon speeders, like the EK9 is in neon speeders strictly so that series would sell, because otherwise it probably would peg warm, and it still does peg warm to a fair extent. So yeah, I think it just, some of these series feel so phoned in, and like they're just trying to put popular models out there at a higher price point so we'll buy them. Like the EK9, like it's just, it bugs me a little bit. It feels like a cash grab. It feels like they're just trying to rip us off for money. Speaking of the quality, look at the 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 302. On the left is the current vintage racing version. On the right is the old school vintage racing version from 2010 or whatever. Now, granted, they probably can't do the rubber wheels that look fantastic on this in a $3 model, but they absolutely could have that level of deco. They absolutely could have that licensed livery style and feel, instead of just phoning it in like they do on the left. On the left, you get what, a Goodyear Tampo and the number 12, versus on the right, you have a fully thought out and well executed racing deco based on the actual Ford Mustang Boss 302. There are pictures of this car. It raced in this exact livery, and on the left, you can see, I guess they're trying to do that. It's not good at all. It's unfortunate. So that's enough on the Silver Series. Let's go ahead and talk about the final aspect of Hot Wheels collecting, and that is RLC. This is the direct-to-consumer portion of Hot Wheels collecting. Everything else you've seen, pretty much the only way to buy those cars are by going to the store and finding them on shelves. RLC, however, this is where you go online to buy stuff. And in my opinion, RLC is in a great spot. I think there is fantastic selection and variety in cars right now. RLC has never had this diverse lineup. I think about to when I started collecting in 2015, and a lot of the releases, they'd release the same car like 3 to 4 times a year, it felt like, and basically there were like 10 castings that like were good enough and cool enough that they would put on RLC. Now, where there were like 10 castings over like what felt like a 5-year period, now you're getting like 15 different castings a year, and that's fantastic. The other thing I appreciate, it's a lot easier to get every model than it used to be. Some people, for whatever reason, are like, I miss the day when the cars were like 5,000 or 10,000. No, that's not how RLC should be. Hot Wheels has the concepts of chase. Their chases, their like rare cars come as super treasure hunts and treasure hunts and the car culture chase pieces, and trying to find those in stores. If you want rare Hot Wheels, that is the outlet they give you. RLC should not also follow that model. This is the Red Line Club. This is meant and aimed at collectors. And if you're gonna go after collectors, you should make it available to every collector. You shouldn't put us in a situation where we're having to deal with bots and making these difficult to get, and they're super low numbers, and they don't. And I appreciate that, and I think a lot of other people appreciate it too, because 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, if your browser crashed while you were trying to buy a model, you were out of luck and you were not going to get one. And then you were going to have to go on eBay and pay 2 to 3 times the price point to get it. Now, if you're not on right when it drops, it's okay. You typically have, a 5 to 10 minute window to still go get that car. And that accessibility is key. Keep them common. We're collectors. Everybody should have an ability to get it. These shouldn't be made to be super valuable on secondary markets and appeal to hypebeasts. Saying all that, with the variety being great, with the cars being super accessible, there are some issues. Quality is an issue. I have seen too many people post like just bad pieces that weren't, somehow got through quality control, which when you're spending $30 to $40 a car should not happen. Price is an issue. Make it kind of tough. It's a little bit expensive on a per car price. I think it could be cheaper. I think we get overcharged a little bit. Ultimately, though, quality could be improved. Price, I think, could be improved. That's a topic for a separate video. RLC is in a really good place in terms of the releases. Great variety, easy to get, can't complain. Now let's move to the other RLC product currently. That is Elite 64. My idea for Elite 64, if I'm running Hot Wheels, I'm scrapping as an RLC venture. I'm not making it direct to consumer anymore. I'm going to put it in stores and replace the 143rd line. Talking specifically about Elite 64th as a line, it's supposed to be kind of Hot Wheels' answer to Tarmac Works and Mini GT and these other 164th brands that have popped up that are more focused on their higher price point. They're focused on quality and detail. And in my opinion, the answer from Hot Wheels isn't that good when in that comparison. There's less variety in the Hot Wheels lineup. Mini GT, Tarmac Works, they have multiple, releases coming out every month. With Hot Wheels, we get like 7 or 8 a year for Elite 64. It seems like the quality and detail just isn't there. What Tarmac Works and Mini GT, especially Mini GT, is able to do with like kind of their wheels and the side mirrors being rubber pieces and how detailed the headlights are and those being separate plastic. It looks so good. They are perfect in my opinion, and you rarely ever have quality problems. Hot Wheels, with the numbers they're producing their cars at, I understand it's probably going to be difficult to match that quality and detail. And to be fair, they don't. They just don't. They're good, but they're not nearly on the level that those other two brands are. And you're paying essentially, these cars are $20, where Mini GT and Tarmac Works are 15. So you end up paying a higher price point for less variety, less detail, and worse quality, which makes it a tough sell in my opinion. Especially once you bring in the fact that you have to pay shipping for Elite 64, and it's $7 to ship a car from RLC. So your car goes from being $20 to $27. At that point, I can basically get two Mini GT cars from a hobby dealer or eBay seller or my local hobby shop for that price point, and that's a really tough sell. It is worth noting, I think they've done a good job of leaning into the customizable aspect to kind of differentiate the Elite 64th line from these other premium lines that are available currently. Mini GT, Tarmac, they're basically everything they produce is purely stock. It's stock or a race car. Those are kind of the two things they occupy. Hot Wheels has really leaned into the modified aspect. You've had the Lamborghini Aventador as a Liberty Walk. You can see the modified 69 Ford Mustang literally says modified in the name. I think about like the Toyota truck they did that's, got all the trinkets that comes along with it. They've done a good job of leaning into these cars, the BMW M3 wagon that was like slammed and was super cool. They've done a good job of making these cars different and stand out, and therefore not being directly comparable as much to Mini GT. So I appreciate that. They've differentiated the line. I think that's a good idea. But I think here's why it shouldn't be sold an Elite 64 and why it should replace 143rd, as I mentioned earlier. First of all, they're at a similar price point. Right now, a 143rd model runs for $25. These run for $20. There's a similar amount of castings available at the current moment. Like I said, we probably see 7 or 8 Elite 64 cars a year. With 143rd, I think we see 12 total a year currently. And the 143rd peg warm, $25 is a tough price point in the diecast retail space. in Walmart and Target. I guess they're not sold in Walmart. I think they're Target exclusive. No, they're not Target. Anyways, when you're comparing it to other 143rd cars available that are $10, is the Hot Wheels one better? Yes. Is it $15 better? Absolutely not. And that is the tough sell. And as a result, they peg warm. Nobody really wants them. I don't see a lot of collectors online buying these things. The product isn't moving. When it's directly next to the $1 Hot Wheels cars, parents are just going to opt for the $1 Hot Wheels cars that are compatible with their kids' track sets as it is, because it's cheaper and it's more affordable. So 143rd should go. These come in at a similar price point. They're $5 cheaper. They're now, you don't have to pay for shipping now, so they get even more popular. They're a desirable product. People seem to be genuinely at least interested in these things and buying these things whenever there's a release. I typically see people posting on Instagram and YouTube about them. And I think if you put them on the shelves, they'll sell even more because, like I said, not paying that extra $7 for shipping is huge. One of these cars costing $20 versus $27, $28 is potentially the difference in me buying a few of the Elite 64th models that I have not bought, because I have not bought every single one. But there's a few that if they were $20, I probably would have gotten. Ultimately, for Hot Wheels, they don't have to monopolize every space in the diecast world. You just don't need to do it. You don't need to dominate 134. You don't need to dominate, this like premium 164th market. I think they're trying to put their foot in and see what works and what doesn't work. And I think they're spreading themselves thin a little bit. Ultimately, though, Elite 64th is good. I wish it was more affordable and available in stores rather than online. I think that would make it just easier to collect in general from a price standpoint. Last but not least, let's talk about Hot Wheels track sets. This is something that is near and dear into my heart. This is what got me into the hobby. Buying Hot Wheels tracks and racing my Hot Wheels cars is how I became a Hot Wheels collector. I started posting videos of Hot Wheels races on YouTube, and this channel was born, and it got me involved in the collecting atmosphere, and there's something that is still important to me to this day, because I still use my track sets to this day. I love running cars down the Super 6-lane raceway. I still post Hot Wheels tournaments videos. That's literally the namesake of my channel. And looking at the track sets that are available in stores now, I have just a few observations. Sets seem overly complicated and in your face. They all have these like giant sharks and, monster trucks and all these like random things going on, and they seem too busy and too complex and hard to build and easy to break, and they just I get they're trying to add this stuff to seem fun, but ultimately at the end of the day, I don't know how fun they really look. They just look, I don't know. They seem too complex. The best track sets in my mind are simple ones. The track sets I used the most and played with the most as a kid were the simple track sets. There's too much emphasis on these crazy concepts rather than just making the playability fun and repeatable time after time after time. These complex track sets, the ones I had, they broke, but the simple raceways did not, and I would use those day after day after day after day. So what are we going to do? What is new? If I'm running Hot Wheels, what am I changing? Let's bring back the racetracks. Ultimately, this was always the thing I had the most fun doing, was racing my cars down the track. It's what my friends had the most fun doing. And you talk to anybody at Hot Wheels, they always talk about racing their Hot Wheels. That's what people want to do. Bring back the Super 6-lane raceway. Bring back the 4-lane downhill. Bring back the Elimination Raceway track. Bring back the 3-lane Wave Runner track set. Bring back all these downhill track sets that have the finish gate and allow the cars to like go through. Ultimately, those are as much a part of Hot Wheels as the loop-de-loops and the jumps, which are also fun. We don't need these complex sets. Keep it simple. Allow us to build raceways and really long tracks for cars to go down. I think that's what ultimately, from a playability standpoint, makes Hot Wheels so desirable. They don't need to be eaten by a shark or a spider or whatever it is. We're also going to bring back the classic rod runners from the 70s. I don't know why they don't use these things anymore, because they're really cool. I own a couple. It's the perfect way to keep your car going on a lap by lap basis. The boosters work somewhat well. They're just so overpowered that they throw the car off the track a lot. So I want to see the rod runners come back. They also require just rubber bands. They don't make as much noise as Booster does. I think they'd be more desirable for parents, especially in that regard. And yeah, it's just exhilarating to create those lap by lap races and keep the car going, and they work super well. Ultimately, that's my idea for track sets. Just something that's kind of important to me. And I wish they would change up, because tracks don't seem as fun or as cool as they used to. So that is all for this video. Ultimately, Hot Wheels is a great spot in a brand. It's probably in the best spot it ever has been. They're selling more products. There's more variety in the lineup. There's more stuff available than there ever has been at any point in Hot Wheels history. They have almost half an aisle to themselves in most stores at this point. That has never been the case until the last couple of years, just really emphasizing how popular they are. They have their issues. There's some quality stuff. They feel a bit overpriced at times, but as a whole, I think Hot Wheels is doing more good than bad for the collector. They're giving us more opportunities to collect cool stuff than we could ever possibly imagine. And ultimately, they understand the importance of their collectors, which is really important. They continue to do right by them for the most part. Like I said, their pricing could be better, but there are a lot of brands that don't recognize their collectors and don't understand their importance. Hot Wheels does. They have collector lines in stores specifically for us. They have online collector websites specifically for us. That's a rare thing in the toy brand world. Toys largely view themselves as made for kids. So the fact that they're willing to recognize their adult fan base, I think, is a good thing. That's all for now. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.